Hi, this problem is one that a classmate of yours asked me to do. This is actually from the 423 homework, and this is problem 4-94. Solve the expression and solve and express solutions algebraically and on a number line. So to do this, when there's only one variable, see, I only have an x. I don't have an x and a y or two different letters, right? So I want to just get everything on one side if I possibly can, and that way I can solve. So let's distribute the 3 first, right? And I'm going to kind of ignore this inequality sign, you guys, till the end, right? So I'm going to leave it and just pretend like it's an equal sign for now. And then I want to combine my like terms across that inequality sign. So I need to do the opposites to move things together, right? So I'm going to subtract the 4x and move it over here with the 3x. And that's going to give me negative 1x. And then I'm going to take the 6 and I'm going to move it over with the negative 7 by subtracting it and canceling out there, moving it over here, right? And now I want to actually look at the fact that I have an greater than sign there. And then these two guys together give me negative 13. So what I have to do is I got to get rid of that negative 1 that is with my negative 1x right now. So I'm going to divide by negative 1. When I divide by a negative, you guys remember that is really important. This sign is going to flip, right? So because I did this right here, where I divided by the negative, it's going to change that greater than sign to a less than. So it's going to be x is less than positive 13. And so on my number line, right, it's going to just be let me get my colors right, like this. And I'm going to go ahead and just do like 0 here, and then 13 over here. And when it's like this, it's going to be an open circle because it doesn't include the point, right? So I'm going to do an open circle, and then it's to the left. So less than 13 is going to travel to the left. So it's going to be all things this way. That's it for that one. Letter B is slightly more complicated just because it has squareds in it, right? So in this one, you guys, remember when you have like an x squared and an x, you're going to have to move everything over to one side. So I'm going to move all this stuff over to the left side, okay? So let me go ahead and subtract x squared and combine it with this. Remember, that's like a 1x squared, so that becomes 2x squared, right? And then I'm going to subtract the x and move it over here with the negative 4x. Remember, that's a negative 1x, so that is now negative 5x. Right? And then I'm going to move my 6 over as well by subtracting it. So all of these are canceling out and just moving to the other side, right? Then that's negative 4, positive 2 minus 6. And then I still have that inequality sign, so don't forget that's still there. And then now all of this stuff canceled, so that's just a 0 on that side, right? Now we want to look and see, can we factor this, right? So we can try in box method and see if we can factor it, or you could use guess and check with 2 parentheses like this if you want to. Up to you. You could also just go straight into quadratic formula if you hate factoring, right? So I'm going to put, remember, the 2x squared goes right here, and then the last term, which is my negative 4, goes in this box. And then the 2 boxes that are empty are the 2 terms that make up that negative 5x. So I like to kind of stick that right here in the middle, right? Okay, now, how do I get 2x squared? I'm going to need a 2x and an x. So I'm just going to put those here and here. And then how do I get negative 4? Well, we could do 4 times 1, or we could do 2 times 2. So let's start with 2 times 2 and see what that does for us. 2 and 2. And because it's negative, I know one of my signs only needs to be negative, right? So I'm going to make, I don't know, this one negative. Why not, right? So now if I do that, I get negative 4x and I get 2x. Okay, so I can see that when I have this in the middle, you guys, negative 4x and 2x, that does not give me 5x, right? So that's not going to work. Now, the problem with 2 and 2 is that even if I flip-flop them, it's still not going to work because I'm still going to have a 2 here multiplied by the 2x. So 2 and 2 are not going to work. So I need to go back and see if instead of doing 2 times 2, if I try 4 times 1, maybe that will work, right? So I don't know, let's stick the 4 here and the 1 here, right? And then that's 1x, and this is 8x, and one of them needs to be negative, so I don't know, let's just make that negative. That's still not going to give me 5, right? So negative 8 and positive 1. So because this doesn't work, this does not factor. Okay, so what we would want to do at this point is go to quadratic formula and do that, all right? I'm not going to finish that out, but remember you would go A is 2, B is negative 5, and C is negative 4, right? And then you would do the quadratic formula, which is this guy. Sorry, I messed up. Negative b plus or minus, you have this in your notes, b squared. You can also look it up on the internet all the time, all day. You could ask Siri, what's quadratic formula? And she will tell you. Okay, so then we would plug all that stuff in and we would find the 2 possible x values, and those would go in here, right? So if you need more help on that, let me know, and we can go over that some more. But definitely make sure that you know how to do this one. This one is very important. Okay, this one, sketch the graph of the equation. And I just wanted to throw this one on. This is from the 4.2.4 homework, which was actually my B-Day kids. You guys had this for homework. So let's go over it anyway, even if you don't have that homework, just to make sure. This is similar to what we were doing in class, right? Except now I'm wanting you to sketch the graph, right? So sketch the graph of the equation. So you can do this one of 2 ways, right? You can sketch each side. Remember this as graph 1 and this as graph 2. And if we're trying to solve, we are trying to find where they intersect, right? And I think that's the fastest way on this one. Plus, we have a y and an x. Okay, scratch what I just said. I'm crazy because it's evening and my brain's not functioning. Because we have a y and an x, all we can actually do is get it into y equals form. So ignore what I just wrote about graph 1 and 2. Just kidding. We want to just subtract the 5, right? And move it over here. So it's going to be y equals x minus 2 squared minus 5. And honestly, guys, I would leave it like that. Obviously, you can use Desmos. But this one has a locator point. This is just like what we did in chapter 2, right? So, and chapter 3. So right here, my locator point, my HK, is 2 comma negative 5, right? So I know that's going to be my vertex for this one because it's a parabola because of that squared right there, right? So I can go over 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down 5. There's my point right there. And then from here, I could find my y-intercepts so that I could have a more accurate graph. You could go to Desmos. I'm just going to find my y-intercepts. So remember, the y-intercepts lie on this axis right here, and it's where the y value equals, or sorry, the x-intercepts, my gracious. Oh, Miss Rios has lost her mind this evening. Y equals 0 on the x-axis, right? So I want to find where it crosses the x-axis. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y, and then I have to solve it, right? So it's going to be an approximate, but let's do it anyway. Why not? Let's take a stab at it. So I'm going to plug in a 0 for y, and then I have my little equation here, which is x minus 2 squared minus 5. And then I'm actually going to add the 5 back to the other side, because now I can use my square root property, right, and take the square root of both sides so that I can find the x value. So I'm going to take the square root and the square root, and x minus 2 is what happens here. And then the square root of 5, I'm going to go ahead and get the decimal approximate simply because I'm graphing, so I want it to be able to graph. So the decimal approximate of the square root of 5 is 2.24, so I'm just going to say 2.2. And then I'm going to add 2 to it, right? And don't forget, when you take the square root, you have a positive and a negative. So actually, it's plus or minus 2.2. And then if I add 2 to that, one of my x-intercepts is going to be 4.2. And the other one is going to be negative 2.2 plus 2, which would be negative 0.2. Okay? So if you don't believe me, check this on Desmos, and you should see that is where they are crossing the x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4. 0.2, I don't know, let's just do it about there. And then negative 0.2 is going to be, between 0 and negative 1 right there. And so my graph approximately is going to look like that. All right, and again, check me, right? You can go right back to this step right here, guys, and you can graph that on Desmos, and hopefully your graph looks just like that purple one. So I hope that helps, and we'll do more fun math soon.